is what your trading day this Thursday, 22nd of September, looks like. I am boosting number 5. This is your Frontier opening bell. Welcome everyone to the program. As we wrap up Wednesday's trading day, give you a bit some insight into what to expect today. You know the big story today. The central banks of Egypt and South Africa will be deciding interest rate direction today. Yesterday we got the news about South Africa's inflation down to about 7.5%. But again, today is one big day for a number of central banks around the world. The Bank of England will also decide interest rate today. Yesterday, we got the US FOMC, Jerome Powell, announcing that 75 basis point rate hike in line with expectations, taking the Fed fund rates to between 3% and 3.25%, and says inflation remains the target and the risk of recession could be taken if that would bring inflation in the United States to its knees. There's no deadline yet for as to when the Fed will start cutting rates. That was at the press briefing at about 2:30 p.m. Eastern time yesterday. That's some of the big stories around central banks, inflation, and interest rate hike as we get on this particular week and next week, of course, for September rate hikes by central banks around the world. Overnight, the Bank of Japan and the Bank of Korea are also talking about their interest rate direction. Let's check in with the African markets, frontier markets. Nigerian stocks bucked by 0.05%. The market is looking for a major breakout to the upside or to the downside. So it's been base forming around that 49,400 level over the last 2 weeks, in particular since the start of September. Then you've got the BRVM down by 0.45% in Ivory Coast on Wednesday. The Egyptian market will be closing today at the end of the weekend, 0.55%. We'll look into what the Egypt Central Bank will decide today in terms of interest rates, with inflation rising in one of the biggest economies on the African continent. Look at the Nairobi market, down by 0.31%. The Kenya Central Bank will be holding interest rate decision next week under Njoroge. And of course, the GSE today, Lesego Ngiango, will be holding a press briefing later today on South Africa's interest rate direction. Yesterday, when we saw the inflation came a little bit down, but that will not be enough for Lesego and the rest of his team at the SCRB to cut interest rates at least 75 basis points. It's on the table according to a survey by economists. Then, of course, the rest of the market is anyone's guess. Let's take that on board and then go to the top stories across East African continent today. Let's check in with that corridor. Kenya's cement use was up about 18%. In the first half of the year, January to June, because there's a whole lot of construction going on in the country. You need to visit Nairobi and see what's going on. Kenya exports to Uganda dropped by 8.5% to roughly 46.7 billion shillings, while the rest of exports to East African community continue to soar. EquityBank says he's phased out EazzyBanking app and introduced or onboard a new app, which is EquityMobile app. If you are in Kenya, I'm sure by now you already know that Equity Bank is the iconic banking brand in Kenya and the entire East Africa down to Central African Republic. In the meantime, Tanzania says it scrapped the levy on electronic transactions because of the outcry of consumers. That's some good news they can use. Congratulations, folks. Let's go to that West and Nigerian markets. The Nigerian president will be speaking today at the U.S. Africa Investment Summit in New York. That's on the sidelines of the ongoing United Nations General Assembly. Nigeria's central bank is in attendance. Will be attending that particular summit and will be speaking as well as the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, and a few other folks in the private sector. Nigeria is unveiling part of the new policy and economic direction under the President Buhari's administration, which is leaving office in June next year. In the meantime, United Bank for Africa, headquartered in Lagos, but footprints in about 20 African countries, including the US, United Kingdom, as well as in United Arab Emirates in Dubai a few months ago, says he's planning to unveil its own Afrexim Bank PAPSS program in the fourth quarter. The PAPSS, which is the Pan-African Payment Settlement System, was part of the banking transaction platform that was created by Afrexim Bank as part of the AFCFTA. PAPSS is headquartered in Accra, Ghana. In the meantime, Ghana's economy expanded 4.8% in the second quarter, as we have a new IMF team on the ground to discuss the Ghana's extended facility request from the International Monetary Fund. Good news for Ghana, by the way, because the African Development Bank, headquartered in Cote d'Ivoire, is giving $30 million in grants to the Nana Akufo-Addo's administration to support projects relating to COVID-19 pandemic recovery. And the board of directors of the BOAD, which is the development bank of ECOWAS Development Bank, has okayed new commitments for about 350 billion CFA franc. Let me take you straight to Southern Africa. And of course, you know the headline story about interest rate today by the SARB later in the day. The expectations is that if interest rate in South Africa, Africa's most advanced economy, will go higher. But South Africa may also reduce power cuts, the key problem for Ramaphosa's administration, to lower level to about 4,000 megawatts by September 22nd, which is, of course, today. President Ramaphosa came back from US and the UK to deal with the problem with Eskom, which is yet to abate. Inflation went up to 7.6% in the month of August. If a headline interest rate hits 7.5% today by the SARB, we'll see how things play at that and impact on the market. We'll give you all of that tomorrow, Friday. The Absa Bank in Botswana, the Botswana subsidiary of the Absa Bank of South Africa, reported a profit jump of 36% in the first half of the year, while Vodacom says it's investing about $15 million to help Africa curb its maternal mortality. Africa has one of the highest level of maternal mortality around the world, and Vodacom in telecommunications says it's putting $15 million on the table to support that. Thank you very much. That's really appreciated. Let's move into North Africa with Egypt. The Central Bank of Egypt will today decide interest rate. That will take the market in Cairo to the weekend until Sunday when markets reopened in Cairo. The Prime Minister, however, says economic conference, which was recently held, has urged constructive dialogue between the government and the business community. The Financial Reporting Authority in Cairo has also approved a new fund to invest in Egyptian stocks. That is part of providing more liquidity into the Egyptian market, which the chairman of the exchange says a few days ago, says lack of liquidity is one of the biggest problems for the Egyptian market. Yesterday, we saw roughly $53.6 million in total transactions on that exchange, the biggest north of the continent. And the Central Bank of Egypt has issued new instructions to fast-track import processes, part of the whole idea of ensuring that supply constraints, which were occasioned by the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, brought in by Russia, is mitigated. And finally, billionaire businessman Moroccan Akanoj says he wants global support to mitigate Africa's economic crisis. He was speaking in Cairo in the last few days in the current week. And that's the summary of your business, economic, and markets headlines across Frontier Africa. Have a great day, everyone. I am Bosun Amafai, and I'll see you next time. Remember to go on our website to watch this show again. You can also watch other shows as well as our stories on our website at www.frontierafricareports.com. And you can see all our stories also on our social media, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, as well as Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube. Frontier Africa Reports is free. See you next time.